Hi, welcome back to Family Secret TV. News stories ready. Watch till the end. My brother stared at the document I'd just placed on the conference table. His hands were shaking. "What the hell is this?" he said. My mother leaned forward, squinting at the numbers. Her reading glasses hung from a chain around her neck, but she didn't put them on. Like refusing to focus would make the document disappear. My father, seated at the head of the table in the chair he'd occupied for 38 years, looked at me with an expression I'd never seen before. Confusion. Then recognition. Then something that looked a lot like fear. "Those are invoices," I said calmly. "For 8 years of labor. Professional rates. Itemized by task. Total amount owed, $1,273,000. The room went silent. Through the conference room windows, I could see the warehouse floor. Forklifts moving pallets. Workers in safety vests. The family business my grandfather had built in 1962. The business I'd been working in since I was 16 years old. The business I'd helped save, expand, modernize. The business that had never once put my name on a paycheck. My brother's lawyer, a man in a gray suit who charged $400 an hour, cleared his throat. "Miss Carson, this is highly irregular. You can't just retroactively bill for work you performed as a family member." I smiled. "I didn't bill retroactively," I said. "I billed in real time. Every week for 8 years. I just never sent the invoices." I opened my folder and pulled out a second stack of papers. "Until now, my name is Nora Carson. I'm 31 years old. And until 3 months ago, I was the person who ran Carson Logistics without a title, a salary, or a single share of ownership." Let me take you back to the beginning. Because this story doesn't start with invoices. It starts with a 16-year-old girl being told that family means sacrifice. Carson Logistics is a freight and warehousing company in Raleigh, North Carolina. My grandfather, Thomas Carson, started it in 1962 with 1 truck and a contract to haul tobacco. By the time I was born, we had 12 trucks, 2 warehouses, and contracts with companies you'd recognize. By the time I was 16, we were doing $8 million a year in revenue. And by the time I was 23, we were on the verge of bankruptcy. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I was 16 when my father, Robert Carson, sat me down in his office. Summer 2009. The recession was in full swing. Companies were going under every day. Carson Logistics was hemorrhaging money. 2 of our biggest clients had filed for bankruptcy. Our margins were razor thin. Our trucks were old. Our warehouse management system was a filing cabinet and a man named Earl who'd been working there since 1978. My father looked exhausted. Lines around his eyes I hadn't noticed before. Coffee stains on his shirt. A stack of overdue invoices on his desk. "Nora," he said, "I need your help. I was supposed to start my junior year of high school in 6 weeks. I was supposed to be on the swim team. Apply to colleges. Do normal teenager things. Instead, my father handed me a manila folder. Inside, a client contract. A shipping schedule. A list of outstanding payments we were owed. "I need you to call these companies," he said. "Get them to pay what they owe. You're good with people. You're organized. I need someone I can trust." He paused. "Just for the summer. Until we get back on our feet." I said yes. Because that's what you do when your family needs you. You say yes. That summer turned into a year. That year turned into 8. I started with collections. Calling clients who hadn't paid. Following up on overdue invoices. Tracking down accounting departments. I was 16 years old, calling CFOs of multi-million-dollar companies, pretending to be 25. It worked. Within 3 months, I'd collected $82,000 in overdue payments. My father was thrilled. "You're a natural," he said. He didn't pay me. He said we'd figure something out when things stabilized. Things never stabilized. They just got more complicated. And I got more responsibilities. By 17, I was managing client relationships. By 18, I was negotiating contracts. By 19, I was overhauling our entire warehouse management system, implementing software, training staff, streamlining operations. By 20, I'd renegotiated our insurance contracts and saved the company $120,000 a year. By 23, I was the one keeping Carson Logistics alive. And I still didn't have a title. I still didn't have a salary. I still didn't have health insurance. My brother, Derek, 3 years older than me, worked at the company too. Officially. He had a title, Vice President of Operations. He had a salary, $95,000 a year. He had benefits, stock options, a company truck. What Derek didn't have was the ability to do his job. Derek was good at two things, showing up on time and taking credit. He'd walk the warehouse floor with clients, shaking hands, talking about our systems and our efficiencies. Systems I'd built. Efficiencies I'd created. When clients complimented the improvements, Derek would smile and say, "We've really turned the ship around." As if he'd done anything but forward emails and attend meetings. My mother, Linda Carson, handled the books. Sort of. She had an accounting degree from 1982 and a profound resistance to learning new technology. QuickBooks confused her. Excel terrified her. So I did the books too. Accounts receivable, accounts payable, payroll, tax prep, all of it. Without pay. Because family helps family. I lived at home until I was 25. Not because I wanted to. Because I couldn't afford to move out. I was working 60-hour weeks at a company that generated $8 million a year in revenue. And I was making $0. My father would give me cash sometimes. $200 here, $300 there. For gas and groceries. It wasn't a salary. It was an allowance. When I finally moved out at 25, I had $1,700 in savings. I rented a studio apartment in a complex off Capitol Boulevard. $650 a month. No dishwasher. The air conditioning barely worked. I got a second job waiting tables at an Applebee's 4 nights a week. Because working 60 hours at Carson Logistics wasn't enough to pay rent. My mother asked why I needed a second job. Because I need money, Mom. She looked genuinely confused. But you're working for the family business. That's an investment in your future. What future? I asked. I don't own any part of the company. She waved her hand dismissively. That'll all get sorted out when your father retires. It didn't get sorted out. It got worse. When I was 27, my father had a health scare. Mild heart attack. Nothing catastrophic, but enough to make him think about succession planning. He called a family meeting. Me, Derek, my mother, my father's estate attorney, a man named Gerald Fitzsimmons who smelled like Old Spice and spoke in legalese. Your father wants to ensure the business stays in the family, Gerald said. We're drafting a succession plan. He slid documents across the table. Derek would inherit 60% of the company. My mother would inherit 40%. I would inherit 0%. I stared at the numbers. What about me? Gerald looked at my father. My father looked at the table. Derek spoke first. Nora, you've been a huge help. But you don't have the business experience to run a company. I'd been running the company for 11 years. I rebuilt our client base. I modernized our systems. I renegotiated our contracts. Derek shifted in his seat. That's operational stuff. I'm talking about leadership. Vision. Vision. Derek, whose idea of strategic planning was forwarding motivational LinkedIn posts, was lecturing me about vision. I turned to my father. Dad, is this real? He finally looked at me. Nora, you're young. You'll have other opportunities. Derek has a family to support. Derek was single. He lived in a condo our parents had bought him. He drove a company truck and ate most of his meals at our parents' house. But sure, he had a family to support. I didn't argue. I didn't yell. I just stood up, walked out of that conference room, and drove home. And that night, sitting in my studio apartment with the broken air conditioning, I made a decision. If they weren't going to pay me, I was going to bill them. I started documenting everything. Every task. Every hour. Every project. I created a spreadsheet. Columns for date, task description, hours worked, and hourly rate. I researched industry standard rates for every role I performed. Business consultant, $150 per hour. Contract negotiator, $200 per hour. Warehouse system specialist, $175 per hour. Accountant/bookkeeper, $125 per hour. Client relationship manager, $160 per hour. I went back through my records, emails, calendars, project files, and I rebuilt 8 years of work, week by week, task by task, hour by hour. The numbers were staggering. Year 1, age 16 to 17, 1,240 hours at blended rate of $140 per hour equals $173,600. Year 2, 1,680 hours equals $235,200. Year 3, 1,820 hours equals $254,800. By year 8, I was working 65 hours a week, 50 weeks a year. Total hours over 8 years, 13,180 hours. Total value at professional rates, $1,273,450. $1,273,450. Before we continue, please subscribe to Family Secret TV and tell me in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is there. I see everything, and your support means the world to me. Thank you. I didn't tell anyone what I was doing. Not my friends. Not my coworkers. Not even the guy I was dating. I just kept working. Kept documenting. Kept building the case. The breaking point came 3 months ago. My father announced his retirement. Effective immediately, Derek would become CEO. There was a party. Catered. Held in the warehouse. Employees. Clients. Family friends. My father gave a speech. "I'm so proud to pass this company to my son," he said. "Derek has worked tirelessly to build Carson Logistics into what it is today." Applause. Derek stood beside him, beaming. I stood in the back, near the loading dock, holding a plastic cup of cheap champagne. And I thought, not anymore. I hired a lawyer. Her name was Simone Reeves. 48 years old. 22 years of employment law experience. She reviewed my documentation, my invoices, my records. Then she looked at me. "This is airtight. Can I actually collect?" Simone leaned back in her chair. "North Carolina law recognizes quantum merit claims. That's a legal doctrine that allows someone to recover payment for services rendered when there was no formal contract, but an expectation of compensation." Was there an expectation? I thought of my father's words. "Just for the summer. We'll figure something out. That'll all get sorted out." Yes. Then you have a case. Simone sent a demand letter. Certified mail. Signature required. Derek signed for it. The letter outlined the claim. 8 years of unpaid labor, itemized invoices attached. Total amount owed $1,273,450. It gave them 30 days to respond. They responded in 12. With a lawyer. The mediation was scheduled for a Tuesday morning at a neutral office in downtown Raleigh. Simone and I arrived first. The conference room was sterile. Glass table. Ergonomic chairs. A view of Fayetteville Street. My family arrived 10 minutes late. Derek. My mother. My father. And their attorney, a man named Charles Brenneman, mid-50s, expensive suit, the kind of lawyer you hire when you're trying to intimidate someone into backing down. They didn't look at me when they walked in. Just took their seats across the table like this was a business transaction. Which, I suppose, it was. Charles opened. "Miss Carson, my clients are deeply hurt by these accusations. They opened their home and their business to you. Gave you opportunities most young people would be grateful for." I didn't flinch. "Did they give me a paycheck?" Simone placed a hand on my arm. A gentle reminder to let her do the talking. "Mr. Brenneman," she said, "let's dispense with the emotional appeals. Your clients operated a business that generated over $8 million annually. They employed my client in multiple professional capacities for 8 consecutive years without compensation. That violates both state and federal labor law." Charles smiled. Miss Carson was a family member. She lived at home. She was provided for. She moved out at 25, Simone said. and has been supporting herself since. Your characterization doesn't match the facts. She slid a copy of my invoices across the table. We're prepared to file a formal lawsuit if this matter isn't resolved today. My father finally spoke. Nora, this is ridiculous. You can't see your own family. I looked at him. Really looked at him. The man who'd asked me to help out for the summer when I was 16. The man who'd watched me work 60-hour weeks without pay. The man who'd planned to leave me nothing. I can, I said. And I will. Derek leaned forward. You're being greedy. We gave you a roof over your head. Until I was 25. After that, I paid my own rent. With money from Applebee's. Because working here didn't pay me anything. My mother's voice was small. We thought you understood. Family businesses work differently. Simone interrupted. Mrs. Carson, family businesses still have to comply with labor law. Your daughter wasn't an intern. She wasn't a volunteer. She was a de facto employee performing essential functions. She's entitled to compensation. Charles tried again. Even if we accept your characterization, the rates you're claiming are absurd. $150 an hour for a teenager? Those are current professional rates, Simone said. For the services she actually performed. Business consulting. Contract negotiation. Systems implementation. If you dispute the rates, we can bring in industry experts to testify. She paused. Of course, that would require going to trial. Which would be public. I imagine your clients would prefer to avoid that. My father's face went red. This is extortion. No, Simone said calmly. This is employment law. She pulled out another document. We've also identified potential violations of the Fair Labor Standards Act. Your daughter worked an average of 60 hours per week. That's 20 hours of overtime weekly. For 8 years. At time-and-a-half rates. She let that sink in. If we pursue the FLSA claim in addition to quantum merit, the total damages could exceed $2 million. My mother made a small sound. Derek's lawyer whispered something to him. My father just stared at the table. Charles asked for a recess. They huddled in a smaller conference room down the hall. Simone and I sat in silence. After 20 minutes, they came back. Charles spoke first. My clients are willing to offer a settlement. $200,000. Paid over 5 years. Simone didn't even consult me. No. Charles blinked. That's a generous offer. It's 15% of what she's owed. And it's structured to ensure she stays financially dependent on your clients for 5 more years. Simone leaned forward. Here's our counteroffer. $1.1 million. Paid in full within 60 days. Plus 15% ownership of Carson Logistics transferred to Miss Carson's name. My family stared. Derek actually laughed. You can't be serious. Simone's expression didn't change. We're very serious. Your sister saved your company. She deserves to own part of it. They tried to negotiate. They offered $400,000 and 5% ownership. Simone countered with $900,000 and 12%. They offered $600,000 and 8%. We held at $850,000 and 10%. After 4 hours, they agreed. The settlement was drafted that afternoon. Nora Carson would receive $850,000 in cash, paid within 45 days. Nora Carson would receive 10% ownership of Carson Logistics, LLC, with full voting rights. The Carsons would issue a public statement acknowledging Nora's contributions to the company. And Nora Carson would resign from all operational duties, effective immediately. I signed. My family signed. And I walked out of that conference room with a cashier's check for $850,000 and a stock certificate that made me a part owner of the company I'd been running for free. Derek called me that night. I didn't answer. He left a voicemail. I hope you're happy, he said. You just destroyed this family over money. I deleted it. My mother sent a text. We're all very hurt, Nora. We thought you loved us. I stared at that message for a long time. Then I typed back. I did love you. That's why I stayed for 8 years. I didn't send it. I just blocked her number. My father didn't reach out. Not a call. Not a text. Nothing. I think that hurt more than anything. Not that he was angry. That he had nothing to say. If you're still with me on this journey, I want to hear from you. Have you ever worked for free because someone told you it was for the family? Have you ever been told your labor was worthless because it was done out of love? Drop a comment below. I read every single one. The money hit my account 6 weeks later. $850,000. After taxes and legal fees, I walked away with about $580,000. The most money I'd ever had in my life. I paid off my student loans. Bought a car that didn't need duct tape to hold the bumper on. Put a down payment on a small house in North Raleigh. And for the first time in 8 years, I didn't have to work at Applebee's. The public statement was published on the company website. Brief. Clinical. Legally mandated. Carson Logistics acknowledges the significant contributions of Nora Carson to our operations and growth over the past 8 years. We are grateful for her service and wish her well in her future endeavors. No apology. No specifics. Just corporate boilerplate. But it was there. In writing. Permanent. I joined the board of directors as a 10% shareholder, which meant I got to attend quarterly meetings, which meant I got to watch Derek try to run the company he'd inherited. It was fascinating. In a horrifying way. Within 6 months, Derek had lost 2 major clients. Not because of market conditions. Because he'd failed to renew their contracts on time. Contracts I used to manage. Within a year, employee turnover hit 40%. People were quitting because Derek had no idea how to manage staff. I used to handle that too. Within 18 months, the company's revenue dropped from $8.2 million to $6.1 million. I watched all of this from my board seat. And I said nothing. Because it wasn't my job anymore. At the 2-year mark, Derek called an emergency board meeting. He wanted to sell the company. A regional competitor had made an offer for $0.2 million for the whole operation. My father, still on the board despite his retirement, looked devastated. Derek thinks this is the best path forward, my father said quietly. I reviewed the offer. Did the math. At 10% ownership, my share of the sale would be $420,000. Not bad. But I'd built something worth more than $4.2 million. And I knew it. I have a counteroffer, I said. Everyone looked at me. I'll buy the company. $5 million. All cash. Contingent on a full operational audit. Derek laughed. You don't have $5 million. I smiled. I have $580,000 in liquid assets. I have a 10% stake worth approximately $500,000. And I have a business plan that 3 investors have already agreed to back. I slid the term sheet across the table. Silent partners. They'd provide $4 million in exchange for 30% equity. I'd contribute my existing 10% stake plus $1 million in cash. Combined, I'd own 40%. Controlling interest. Derek would walk away with $2.7 million for his 60% stake. My mother would get $1.8 million for her 40%. My father would get his legacy back. Under new management. It took 3 months to close. Due diligence. Financing. Legal paperwork. But in March of this year, I became the majority owner and CEO of Carson Logistics. The company my grandfather built. The company I'd saved. The company that had refused to pay me for 8 years. Now it was mine. My first act as CEO was to fire Derek. Professionally. With severance. Compliant with all employment laws. But fired nonetheless. My second act was to promote 3 employees who'd been doing Derek's job for him. My third act was to win back the 2 clients we'd lost. By year's end, revenue was back to $8.1 million. My father came to the office once after the sale closed. He walked through the warehouse. Looked at the new forklifts. The updated software systems. The employee retention metrics posted on the wall. He found me in the office that used to be his. It looks good, he said. Thank you. He stood there for a moment, hands in his pockets. I'm sorry, he said finally, for how he treated you. I looked at him. The man who'd asked a 16-year-old to save his company. The man who'd worked her for free for 8 years. The man who'd planned to leave her nothing. I know, I said. And I meant it. I knew he was sorry. I just didn't know if sorry was enough. Derek and I don't speak. My mother sends Christmas cards. I send them back. We're civil, distant, careful. We'll never be what we were. But maybe we were never really that to begin with. Last month, I hired a young woman named Maya, 22 years old, recent college graduate, degree in supply chain management. She's smart, organized, eager. She reminds me of myself at that age. I gave her a salary, benefits, a clear job description. And on her first day, I told her something no one ever told me. Your work has value. Don't ever let anyone convince you otherwise. Not even family. She looked at me like I'd said something profound. But it wasn't profound. It was just true. I think about my 16-year-old self sometimes. The girl who said yes because her family needed her. The girl who worked 60-hour weeks for 8 years without pay. The girl who was told she'd be taken care of when the time came. I wish I could go back and tell her, "You're not helping. You're being exploited. You're not investing in your future. You're funding theirs. And the people who love you shouldn't have to be sued to pay you." But I can't go back. I can only go forward. Carson Logistics is projected to do $9.2 million in revenue this year. We've expanded into 2 new states. We've been named one of the best places to work in the Triangle by the Raleigh Business Journal. And every employee, from the forklift operators to the contract managers, gets a paycheck. On time. Every 2 weeks. Because that's how businesses work. Even family businesses. I still have the invoices. All 416 of them. Printed and bound in a binder that sits on my bookshelf at home. I look at it sometimes. Not because I'm angry, but because it reminds me of something important. Your labor has value. Your time has value. You have value. Even if the people who are supposed to love you can't see it. If you're in a family business where you work for free while others get paid, where your contributions are dismissed as helping out, where you're told ownership will be sorted out later, I want you to hear this. You're not being dramatic. You're not being greedy. You're being exploited. And you deserve better. Family is supposed to be the people who see your worth, who celebrate your contributions, who pay you what you're owed, not because a lawyer forces them to, but because they value you. If your family can't do that, it's not you who's broken. It's the arrangement. My name is Nora Carson. I'm the CEO of a company that tried to erase me. And every day I walk through that warehouse, I think about my grandfather. The man who built something from nothing. The man who taught me that hard work matters. I think he'd be proud. Not of the lawsuit. Not of the conflict. But of the ending. A company saved. A woman who knew her worth. And invoices that finally got paid. Thank you for staying until the very end. If this story made you feel something, anger, recognition, or just the quiet knowledge that you've been undervalued too, write it in the comments. I read every one. And if you want to hear what happened when a woman's husband tried to take everything in the divorce without knowing he was taking on millions in hidden debt, that story is linked below. Click it. You won't regret it. Until next time, remember, if someone tells you your work is worthless because you're family, get it in writing. Then bill them for it.